cheer for your Sydney Swans.
Welcome back to A Bevy of Bloods, a fan podcast of the Sydney Swans Football Club.
So to all you loyal Swans out there, you just can't get enough of the red and the white.
Fluff up your tail feathers and settle in for a potentially biased yarn about all things to do with our beloved Bloods.
G'day there, Signets. You're joined as always by the Sydney boys at the Bevy of Bloods. I am Chris and this is Noddy.
G'day there, Swanlings. In this first episode for the year, we're going to be talking about how our Bloods are going so far in the 2024 preseason. And remember, if you like what you hear, give us a follow, or if you have any comments, send us a message. All right, let's get stuck in.
Mate, it feels like the longest preseason with all the chatter with what's going on. We're going to get stuck into all of it, mate. How excited are you?
I am 150% excited.
Hey, what a segue, mate. It is 150 years since the Swans have been around. Mate, you've got a couple of numbers here that are of interest, like all the way back from our initial roots to where we are right now.
That's right. 1874 to 1982 is South Melbourne, referred to as the Swans from 1933. That's 108 years.
108.
Thank you very much. And 1982 to 2024 so far in Sydney as the Swans, 42 big ones. Altogether, 150. Yes, sir.
Ah, beautiful. And look, and just a quick mention of that, it is a really good thing, I think, that we're celebrating 150 because there's going to be a lot of young Swans fans out there that probably have always known the Swans to be in Sydney. And this gives us an excellent opportunity to remind the rest of everyone else and all the Swans fans, especially the young ones, all based out of Sydney probably, that we have a long and cherished history with our friends down there and family down in South Melbourne. Mate, in the off-season, there's been a few changes, of course, within the list in itself and the footy department. Do you want to rattle off a few of what's going on there on the player side?
On the players' side, so as we covered at the end of last year, Franklin Hickey Paddy retired. We traded out Stevens to North Melbourne, and we delisted Clark Gould, the Hyphen, Rankin, Owen, and Sheether. And on the inside, we obviously were very active this year, which was bloody awesome. We brought in Grundy, Adams, Jordan, and Hamling. We drafted Green, Cleary, Snell, and Kirk, and we re-rookied Big Sam Reid.
Oh, Reedy the rookie. Who saw that coming?
Not his hamstrings.
Oldest rookie. Yeah,
or his Achilles. Not his soft tissues, mate.
No, I wish they were rookies. And the footy department also had some changes. So we had Gardner move down to Melbourne, but he's still consulting for Sydney, thank God. Leon Cameron has been promoted from the tech director of the academy to the executive GM of football. So good to see a very knowledgeable head there in Leon Cameron sticking around in Sydney and working for the Swans. Don Pike, of course, has left to be the CEO of West Coast. So good luck, Don. Had a great time here, but it is. And Mark McVeigh, he was the under-18s coach at Academy and Allies and is now the senior assistant coach at the Swannies. And you've got one more there, Noddy, as well.
Yeah, Simon Dalrymple has been the national recruiting or draft manager since about 2018, I believe. And I don't think they've announced anyone as his replacement yet. But obviously Dalrymple, oversaw all those awesome academy products that we brought in that are really the core of the team now. I'm talking Blakey, Goulden, Campbell, I'm thinking of Cleary, Kirk has come in. I'm probably missing someone, but yeah, he was a big scout from the Bulldogs. He did very well for that period of time. Probably the one big one that got away was Dylan Stevens, as we mentioned, traded out, but you can't get them all right, especially when you also find Chad Warner at pick 40. So all good in my books, mate.
He's done pretty well. So that's a bit of a shame, but good luck to him. And hopefully Kinnear beats and gets himself some extra help and some quality at the same time. Mate, this year comes in with it. What you can feel is palpable. It is in the air. There is so much expectation. And I'm trying to work out, and I would throw over to you, where is the expectation coming from in your eyes?
Well, I think, and obviously, there's been a lot of articles that industry pundits have us in the top four, as high as top two. But really, for me, it's the fact that we've actually been quite active in the postseason. So, as we mentioned earlier, we brought in Grundy and Adams, Jordan and Hamling through a variety of pathways. But I think the fact that Grundy and Adams, the part of the Collingwood. Or Grundy obviously went Collingwood, Melbourne, but when you've got these big Victorian players that had huge followings, and everyone can still see them as good players, then there comes a bit of expectation with that. And obviously Jordan, who was a premiership player but couldn't crack into that starting midfield, but he's certainly very exciting. And Hamling is a depth piece, much in the way that we picked up Paddy McCartan. But yeah, look, I don't know. The other thing about weight of expectation or weight of responsibility, obviously a talking point, is Callum Mills. So talk us through Millsy, mate.
Yeah, Millsy is going to be a sole captain, the first one we've had, I think, for 30 years or so. So pretty special moment for him. So we see Parker and Rampy fall off the captaincy. But having said that, Millsy is probably not going to play for half the season. So you still would probably see Rampy and Parker picking up those duties on the field, but unofficially. But Millsy, what can you say? Deserves every bit of it. He's done the job on and off the field, and local Sydney product. You'd love to see it.
Vote of confidence, mate. Look, we've all done things we regret, but the point is he's owned up and he's taking responsibility for that, and the club has backed him in. And look, I'm totally fine with it. Question without notice, mate. Which other youngsters would you like to see have a run with the captaincy this year if it does spread around until Millsy comes back?
Dan, that is a good question. I'd be immediately looking at guys like McCartan and Blakey.
Yep.
I feel, aside from the fact that some leadership in the back line is desperately something that might be in hold, I'd love to see that going on. And they both seem to be, they're committed for long term, Blakey in particular with his long contract. But I think that they're good characters and they've got good heads. And I think they'd be around for a long time. I think they'd be doing a good job. What about you?
I'd like to see Errol and Rowie get a bit of time with as captain, because I think they've both shown that they're natural leaders and they fight hard and they are everything that we like in players. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I'm very excited.
Beautiful. Mate, all right, let's get into some interesting bits. We're going to talk through the team. And so what the structure we're going to doing is we're going to talk about the back line, the midfield, the rucks, and the forwards separately, each one line by line. We're going to initially start predicting what is going to be the starting side in each one of those categories. And we're going to choose probably a name that we see is going to be a bit of a gun for this year. And we're also going to ask the question, who is on the fringes there that either drops out or drops into that definitive, back line. And at the end, then Noddy and I will give out our best squad. So kicking off, mate, I'll start off with the back line. So we've got here as players noted to probably be starting initially. You've got McCartan and Blakey, Rampy, Lloyd, Cunningham, and Florent. Mate, of those players, who do you see is going to have a bit of a gun year?
Oh, look, I think Tommy McCartan is primed again. I know he's gone from strength to strength over the past few years. He obviously had an impacted year last year, but I think he's him and Blakey, him and Lizard really are they are going to be the key pillars of our backline for the next however long as possible, hopefully. But yeah, obviously Rampy, Lloyd, Cunningham, we've got these old experienced heads who can step in and help guide. But I see McCartan and Blakey having big years, and obviously Lizard was in the All-Australian squad last year, and I think he can take that step as well. How about you, mate?
Yeah, look, I was going to reiterate those two, and I just step a little bit more on Blakey. There was times last year, especially that game against Richmond last year, where at Gather Round, where we didn't have a backline, where the backline was all coming down to Blakey. We had no tools left. So Blakey stood up. He can play tall, he can be small, he can run the length of the field. He can also take a couple of speckies while he's at it. So he is a unique talent, and I agree. I think that he probably steps up in some leadership and an extra bit of courage back there. So Blakey, for me, I think is going to have a cracker.
So,
Mate,
mate,
please go ahead.
I've got these guys listed as on the verge, AFL capable, but whether or not they get get a shot early on or throughout the season. Melican, Hamling, Fox, Francis, and Roberts. How do you see those guys? Do you see them coming in soon, or do you see them getting a spot?
I still feel, look, I will pick up Melican versus Francis. I think there's room for that extra tour, and I think between those two, they'll be kind of battling it out. Hamling, of course, we know he's a high quality player. He might put his foot in, but between Melican and Francis, I think they might be going at it. So that'll be interesting to see how they fare up in the VFL. And who manages to get more game time as some of the injuries come through, or even the matchups require that extra tour going on. Mate, what about you? Of those players, who do you think might have a good crack at it?
Yeah, I mean, in the past couple of days, it sounds like Melican's stepping up, which is great because I had him as he had first crack at the end of last year. I thought he was forming a nice key partnership there with Tommy McCutton, so Blakey could do his own lizard thing. But look, I think Fox is one that can step in and play that rampy role or a variety of roles. He's really versatile. I think sometimes to his detriment. But the other one who's had huge raps this preseason is Roberts, Matty Roberts, Robbo.
That's right. Yeah.
I think it sounds like Dean Cox he just loves him, and I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't start, to be honest. But I don't know, mate. It's going to be exciting the structure they go with. Obviously, our two tallest players. One is a key defender, and the other is sort of a halfback, the lizard. Yeah. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Obviously, in the depth, the development roles there, we've got Arnold, Edwards, Snell, Vickery, and Kirk. But do you see any of these guys getting a crack in the AFL this year, mate, or a bit more development?
Probably a little bit more development, especially when the names you've already mentioned there. These are names that are genuinely on the brink of kind of breaking through and has already shown a fair amount of AFL time. So I don't necessarily see us leaning on any of those too regularly unless it comes down to injuries or they just blow out. So not for me. I think what we've mentioned there so far with Melican, Hamling, Fox, Francis and Roberts being the ones on the fringes that get most of the game time on top.
All right, mate, that's great. Let's let me go over to the midfield now. I'm going to call out who I think are the starters. So we've got Parker, Adams, Chad, Rowie, Goulden, Campbell, McInerney, and then Grundy in the rucks. Obviously, the caveat there is Mills, as we've already touched on. Won't come into about halfway through, hopefully earlier. But who do you see? This is a really interesting line, I think, because there's a lot of players that could really come in there depending on structure and opportunity. Who have you got in that category, mate?
Well, mate, right off the bat, Chatty and Rowbottom, who were enormous parts of our midfield in the last couple of years and have both broken out in totally different ways between each other. So those are both names that you expect in any other team, you'd expect them to be playing for, but with Millsy being out, you probably see Warner or Rowbottom getting some time on. And I'd even question a little bit, if you don't mind, Adams. I'd suggest that Adams is the fringe player that plays a bit more all over the place and in favour for some of the younger guys in Chad Rowie and we'll talk about in a second, Jordan. So that's where I sit. I think those two players are probably going to get a fair amount of game time along the way.
Awesome, mate. I think for me, and I think a lot of Swans fans have been thinking about this ever since, I guess, Brownlow night, is how much further can Goulden rise? I mean, he just had a season for the ages last year, and he looks hungrier and fitter this year. So it's tantalising. But yeah, I'm very excited to see how Errol comes out and tackles the season. But go to those fringe players, mate. Who are you thinking are the guys that might get in?
So with the caveat over what's happening with Millsy, of course, so that kind of lays up one. But we've got Sheldrick and Jordan that are both on fringes and both are quite exciting mids for very, very different reasons. One, a lot more inside, of course, within Sheldrick, the Gus Bus, the Beef himself. And you've also got Jordan, who, like, he is a high quality, talented player of a really good age. I think he's 22, 23. Very lucky to pick him up. And between those two, I'm really, really excited about Jordan. I think Jordan's going to have a great run. But if you look in front of him, you've got Gordon, Campbell, McInerney and the wings there, and then arguably maybe a Chatty or so on the outside as well. Like, it's a tough gig to kind of step into it, but I dare say that he ends up getting his opportunities earlier than later and does really well with it, mate. What about you? What do you see?
JJ17. Yeah, I think we're all excited to see what he can do. He's been ripping up the preseason track. Look, the only other one is Laddams, obviously. It's and this is a structural thing, I think. It depends on whether they want McLean as that backup ruck, that hybrid forward ruck. But if they want to, if they're coming up against a team that with two genuine rucks, they might decide to put Lads in there because we know he can go forward and kick goals. He's just got to put it together mentally. But yeah, look, for me, other than that, mate, we've got Mitchell and Cleary, as well as McAndrew and Green in those development positions. But I think that pretty much wraps up the midfield.
Yep, I like it. All right, let's move on to the forwards. So we've got listed here 3 key forwards, a couple of tall, third talls, and a couple of smalls. So in the key, we've got McDonald, Logan, McLean, which we've spoken about, and Amati. Our third talls, we've got Heaney and Haywood, and in the smalls, we've got Papley and Wicks. Mate, of those players, who do you see not necessarily breaking out, but who do you see really getting a good run and showing off themselves?
Oh, for me, it's Logan and Heaney.
Yeah.
Logan kicked 32-15 last year. He's been increasing each year. This is while Buddy was the main target. This is his 4th year, I think, and he's primed for. He's got a brilliant kicking action. He's very, very accurate. He's got a huge tank. He can run up the field and back. There was talk of him maybe playing a bit of a swing role, which I think is potentially a bit of a mistake if he's one of the league's most accurate kickers. But yeah, look, I think McLean and Marty, they're primed as well if they can, if Marty can keep it together in the fitness front. They both kicked 20 goals last year, so I think there's an expectation there. Can Heaney get back to that 50-goal level where he got in the AA 2 seasons ago? I'm hoping. But yeah, how about you, mate? Who do you see as having a big year or playing a role, and who are the players who can come in and be that depth for us?
So I think Reedy is one that's such an interesting character because not only have we seen him be able to play a bit of ruck, a bit of forward, a bit of back, he does play all over the field. He's a very clever player. I think we're at our best and have been at our best when he's in form. So he's a player for me that might see a fair amount of time because we always know if he's healthy, Horse puts him on the field. That has always been the way. He's just that kind of player. He'll find a way to get him on. So you start seeing maybe a Marty might drop off in favour for a Reed initially, depending on what's going on in the backs and depending on how healthy he is, to be fair. So Reedy is a real character, mate. And I think I should throw to you. I mean, we have both spoken about Reed so often for so many different reasons. Some games where he's just took it on and just dominated, and sometimes when he's just been injured and we're just desperate to have him. So what do you see Reedy's season is going to look like?
It's very interesting, mate. We were speaking, I think last week or the week before, we went back and looked at his career, right? And he's had a lot of games out, and people remember that. But I think it's basically he had something like 4 seasons wiped out of 15, right? But I think it was anything over 18 games, and you can book him for at least 20 plus goals a year. So if he's fit and playing, he's going to be basically kicking you a goal a game. So, when you've got McLean and Amati who are, breaking out themselves, can they put it together consistently? It's a bloody good thing to have a player like Reed there who can kick goals and also go back and fill that swing role. But who knows, mate? I mean, if Rampy, touch wood, gets injured and Fox is not the the matchup,
Favoured guy.
then maybe Reed comes in and plays that Paddy McCutton type role with Tommy, and it just is a thing of beauty. So long as McDonald, McLean, and Amati are kicking, you're probably going to give those guys preference. But look, we haven't even spoken about Paps, right? Let him cook.
Let him cook.
Let him cook.
Papley is a particularly good one because, I mean, those smalls are hilarious. Like just the way they need to structure. Sam Wicks is in that lot, of course.
Yeah.
And Horse has come out and said clearly last year when our best 6 forwards has Wicks in it. He's been crystal clear about that. It's part of a structure thing. He's also obviously got that extension, I think 2 years, Noddy, I think 2 or 3 years.
Yep.
And so one name that we thought about was Corey. So Corey Warner, the baby Warner, not the babyest Warner, the second Warner. There's a couple more, I think. There's 4 of them. He might see a fair bit of time as well. We've seen him play a couple of games, and we know from experience and seeing him on live on the pitch, he is electrifying. He's exciting. He has the goods to probably be a good pressure forward, mate. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm on board, mate. I think he should get some games this year. It's just depending on whether he can get in, and so it's that mix of Hayward and Wicks. And Papley and health and form. Hayward, we know, can kick goals and do a lot and create a lot of pressure himself. So if this forward line comes together, we've got a lot of avenues to goal. And we learnt from the Collingwood season last year that they loved, I think it was like 12 or 14 players that have 10 or more goals. They didn't have top 3 that were kicking 60 and 50 goals. They had a lot of contributors, and this is the type of forward line that can contribute. So, yeah, look, who knows, mate. Other than that, obviously, we've got Buller, Magor, and Constanti in the development roles. But like even those guys, Magor aside, potentially he could play in the backs as well. Buller and JK could also get a debut. Or sorry, not a debut, but get some AFL time. I think JK hasn't debuted. Buller did. He played 1 game last year. But yeah, mate, let's recap. So what do we agree on? We agree on 21 players?
Yeah, so let's go quickly on the back. Let's quickly wrap up the back line. Who do we agree on? McCartan, Blakey, Rampy, Lloyd, Cunningham, and Florence.
Yep.
Who do you have coming in on top of that?
I've got Roberts, who will make up the 23 there from the back line for me.
And I will have to go Melican or Francis. I'm going to go with Melican just because of some of the recent experience we've had. So in the midfield, we've got Parker, Adams, Mills, obviously with the question mark with injury, Chad and Rowie, and we've got Goulden, Campbell, and McInerney in the mids. Anyone from that lot you see comes in as well?
I think Beef, Gus Sheldrick is going to play a lot of games this year. He was just looking absolutely cracking. I think the only thing that forced him out was injury, and yeah, I'm really keen to see these preseason games. So yeah, he's the one for me.
I don't disagree, but I've got Jordan coming in.
That's fair enough as well.
A bit of a lightning rod in a few different ways. So that's me.
Yep.
And in the forwards, we've got McDonald, McLean, Amati, Heaney, Hayward, Papley, and Wicks. Any questions over those or thoughts about either one drops off or comes in?
No, mate. No, I think we just Grundy. Grundy is the only other one there. But
I would say I've still got question marks over Marty. I think Reedy kind of maybe takes a bit more time in that space, but that's just me. We don't question, I guess, the ruck choice of Grundy. How much time do we suspect that Laddams gets, do you think?
I don't know. I guess it's form and fitness, but I guess it's matchup as well. Like, for example, Port Adelaide have brought in Soldo and Sweet, and these guys are both outright rucks. So, they've also brought in a lot of height in their back line as well, as we know, BZK and Asava. But I think it's going to come down to matchups, mate. Yeah, I don't know.
Agreed.
I think typically Horse and Co like to have that forward, the hybrid, but that forward ruck as that extra player. But considering we've got an extra player on the bench, I think Laddams is going to consistently be in the best 23. So we agree on 21, which was the players you read out, and then we only differ on for the 23, right? I've got Sheldrick and Roberts, and you've got...
I've got Reedy and Jordan.
Okay, cool. All right. Look, I think it's a pretty good looking squad, mate. If I can be honest, I think the VFL is going to do a lot better than we did last year as well. Obviously, we're waiting for the VFL list to be announced, but the core of these players that aren't playing in the AFL every week are going to get a lot of exposure there, and yeah, I'm excited, mate.
Yep, pumped. I'm really pumped. And I think a lot of the we spoke about earlier about the weight of expectation. I personally feel it's mostly coming from Swans fans. We are really excited about what we've got there. We've filled in a few pieces that we really needed, and for the first time, it feels like we're not necessarily lacking anywhere. Having said that, injuries can happen. The game changes very quickly, but all in all, in a great position to kick off with. So good work on the draft and everything. All right, mate. That's the team. We've spoken about the team. We've spoken about the list. Let's get stuck into a couple of things happening in the AFL generally. The rule changes, mate. There's been a rule change because I don't know. Like someone obviously, I mean, I know what happened, but can you please wrap it up? And I just want to quickly say something about it.
Look, it's Maynard bumped into Viney in the final, and so now they're expecting players to deviate midair in some sort of like unidentified flying object, defying inertia type. Look, I don't know, mate. Look, they've had to address the smother thing, so they have to take all reasonable steps to avoid high contact and minimise the force of that high contact.
It was Brayshaw, by the way. I think you mentioned
Viney. So yeah, it's Brayshaw. Yeah, it's Brayshaw. Sorry, yeah.
But
Viney cracked into him. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, Brayshaw jumped in the air to smother the ball, landed on Brayshaw, knocked him out cold.
Maynard went to smother Brayshaw.
Went to smother Brayshaw's kick, landed on him, knocked him out, understandably. Did he have time in the air to stop and do something about it? No. Did he lay it on a little bit thick, perhaps? As in, I'm talking about Maynard. I think he went in to do a bit of damage in some way. But
he always does, though, right?
He does, right?
That's his modus.
So I have no idea how they're going to police that, but just like any other AFL changes and rules, there is no understanding or qualification of how it's going to happen. So we're just going to have to see it play out throughout the season and then talk about it every single week. So it's giving the journalists something to talk about.
Another one, mate. Another one.
Yeah, go ahead,
on that same vein is they've tweaked the rough contact guidelines, and that's going to bring rundown tackles into focus. So they're going to be checking to see if the force of the tackle contributes to the vulnerability of the tacklee, the one that gets tackled. So that's going to be a fun one.
Okay. I mean, so they're going to have to not only run down tackle them, but also run down tackle them and make it soft.
Soft, yeah. Make sure.
Okay. Make it nicer.
Duty of care. It's a lot of responsibility for someone who's just trying to bring a guy down. But it's all for the right reasons. We're not questioning that.
We're not questioning the reasons. We're just questioning how they're going to police it, right?
Yeah,
it's always
definitely.
been the way this. Yeah,
definitely. Sub rule, mate. This is a good one. This is one of my favorites.
Yeah, you talk it through because you're always the one all over the list management and stuff as well.
Oh, look. So there's a bit of confusion last year with the ins and outs. So this way, the sub rule will remain, but the clubs will name an extended bench. So last year it was 4. But they'll name 5 this year and 3 emergency players. So, it's just to avoid some of that confusion of the ins and outs. But each team sub will be locked in about 60 minutes before first bounce. So, yeah, that should just clarify teams anyway.
Yeah, I mean, my point of that is who cares? Let them do it. I don't care who start. Like, I get why you want to know. I know why journalists and everything in the media wants to know so they can get the graphics up a bit faster. But at the end of the day, just if the coaches want to throw out 4 random players 2 minutes before the game starts, then let them do it. It's up to them. Bugger it. Like, admin will work itself out. So,
mate, you're playing into the Chris Scott playbook here. That's what he does. Everyone's injured. Everyone's fit. And there's like, bang, surprise.
But who cares? So let them do it.
It's sneaky Geelong tactics, mate.
Let 2 teams throw out, they don't know what's going on. Let the tactics have to work themselves out. But the best players on the field, no matter the circumstances, work it out. Last one, it's ridiculous. What do you want to say about this one? Whistling from the interchange is now prohibited because it comes out on the broadcast. Mate, have you ever heard it? I've never heard it once.
I got to say I have never heard it, but I don't know. It's one of these ones where you're just like, okay.
Imagine telling coaches how to coach while on the sideline, but you can't even whistle. They can yell buggery, right? They can yell as much as they want. They can come through to the broadcast, but they can't whistle, whatever.
Can they get like a loudspeaker, like a megaphone, or like a fog, like
Yeah, we can do one of those. Yeah, yeah.
Everyone's got their own sound bite. And
Well, they're saying whistling, but there's no reason you can't have a kazoo to be like, you know what I mean? Like, why not? They'll get interesting. You know?
And off sprints Chad Warner, because everyone knows that's his soundbite.
That weird kazoo thing that happens. Yeah. All right, mate. Look, all right, we're going to get into priority signings. So we have a fair few players not signed up going forward after this season. Mate, you are the Baby Beatson, acknowledged worldwide as Baby Beatson. So let's go through the list. I can see you've got them broken down by the following. Players that we should 100% be extending, some players that we should be given another year and see how it fares out, some players that are pending their run in 2024, and some that are clearly in danger, depending on form. So I'll pass it over to you. Who do you think is 100% we should be focused on extending?
Yeah, mate. And look, I will preface it by saying, it might seem a little crazy to be talking about contract stuff even before the season started, but we know that the clubs are going through this now. In the first half of the season, they focus on this, and then they switch to national draft mode after the main bye. So it is a good time to be talking about this, especially if you're looking at other players' availability in opposing teams. So 100% extending, without doubt, is Goulden.
Yes.
It's just how long do you want to give him?
That's right. How much and how long? Yeah.
First, you've heard it here first, mate. It's going to be the first 10-year contract with a 5-year extension trigger.
Wow.
That's me. 15 years. Just give him 15. Straight up.
He's 2021?
Yeah. Just
So
book him. Just book him.
Book him.
Just reserve him through to retirement, and he can, if he needs to take a sabbatical, all that sort of stuff, that's cool.
That's fine.
But just lock him up, lock him in.
The Mayor of Sydney, right?
That's it. Give him the keys to the city.
Give him the keys. Clover, pass over.
Errol Goulden. Logan is a big one. So obviously Freo are circling hard. They've got like 1 billion first-round draft picks. They're going to try and lure him back home. Yeah. But you just hope it plays out that we don't start to hear that wording like Jeremy Cameron when he was at the Giants before he went to the Cats, like, I'm just going to let the footy do the talking and park the contract stuff, because that can go either way, right? That can be honest, but it can also be a bit of a ploy. But yeah, I'm hopeful that we can lock him in, and that he does have a breakout year for us and continues to roll. So 5 years for Logan. Rowie, same again, lock him in 5 years, however long you want to give him. Jordan, I'd probably go 3. Florent and Hayward's going to be interesting. I've got him extending, but they might want to go back home to Victoria and South Australia, respectively, if they can get a better contract. But we should be getting, if it does come to pass that happens, which I'm against, we should be able to get some good value in return, I think. Mate, I've got the players listed there at least 1 year. Cunningham, Fox, McAndrew, Francis, Constanti, and Buller. Have you got any big thoughts on these guys?
I mean, Cunningham is one that probably comes to mind only because he's been such a staple of the team for so long. So, but to your point, I think at least 1 year, you'd imagine that so long as he stays relatively healthy this year, he gets an automatic extension just because of the quality of play he's been for so long. And one that I'd probably put a big circle around maybe a seed of excitement, and more so because he might end up being a bit of draft target just because, transfer target, because of the nature of us getting him and the quality that we think he is. Buller. I suspect Buller will get that extension, but only to maybe find some more game time elsewhere. But I think he's a good shout there.
Definitely, mate. So pending 24 is an interesting one because there's a lot of players and they're all key defenders, as it turns out. Reid, Hamling, Melican, Arnold, and Edwards. Reid, I think, who knows, right? We spoke about him earlier. Hamling is that depth play. Melican, the sky's the limit. He does have his haters, unfortunately, from the loyal Swans, but we both like him. We've liked him for a long time. Arnold was brought in the mid-season along with Buller, so he's a depth player, but I think he might get some time at some point. And Edwards is that academy player. So I think depending on the structure of the list and how many players, in that sort of Florent, Haywood, and elsewhere category look to move, these guys could roll around. But the ones in danger, obviously, are the untried ones, and that's Magor, who got 1 year last year. When I thought Hall Kahan might have been given the year, but and then obviously Cooper Vickery, who was a national draft prospect, as well as Mitchell, who shot up. We've seen some footage of Mitchell this preseason. He's looking pretty good. So it just depends on structure. But do you have any position on those guys I've listed out, mate?
Not at all. I think Independent 24, Will Edwards and Arnold, I think they're interesting ones. Like, to your point exactly, let's just see how the season goes, to see the depth and see how they fare up in the VFL. They might see some time, especially with some of the guys like Rampy kind of getting a bit older. There may be more time for some of those bigger backs there as well. Mate, all right, that wraps up the priority signings, or the just general signings that we suspect for this year and the focus on them. We have some match sims and a preseason game to go with. So we've got ourselves this Thursday, the 22nd of Feb at 10 a.m. at Tramway Oval against the Giants. Tramway is, of course, the one across the road from the SCG, across the road from Entertainment Centre. That is going to be a cracker. Both Noddy and I will be there. That's going to be a really, really fun game to go to. And that second game, mate, I'll let you take it away with this one.
Just before I do the second game, mate, I've found out the VFL are going to play. The VFL players are going to play, I think, from 1 p.m. as well at Tramway. Ooh. So it's a full day. We're going to get some nice. I have a client
meeting. I can't make it.
Oh, really? Okay, well, I'll fly the flag, mate. And the second one is Thursday, the 29th of Feb at 4:10 p.m. at Blacktown Stadium versus Brisbane, and this is an official preseason game. There's also a game, I think, from about 1 o'clock, which will be the VFL team as well. So that looks like an all-day out at Blacktown as well. So that wraps me up for the next 2 Thursdays. But yeah, we're looking forward to it. We cannot wait to see how we put it. We're looking at this point. Obviously, the skills are going to be a bit rusty, but we're looking forward to seeing who gets game time, who gets time in the centre, who basically is looking likely.
Yep. And look at that, some of the sizing of some of these younger kids that we've seen, at least online, that they're putting on a fair bit of chunk. And we're going to see him in person just to see how much the transition's been in those 6 months. And it looks to be really good, especially when we start looking at those mids, right? Those young mids. All right, mate. Well, look.
Can I say one more thing, mate, before we wrap up?
Yep.
We put a few videos out just reminded me of that match sim against the Giants. That ridiculous photo of the Giants in front of the Sydney Harbour Bridge. These guys are just taking the piss, aren't they?
I think like they've heard us complaining about Battle of the Bridge, and they're just going, we're just going to stick it to the Bevy boys. Like
Battle of the Bridge is not a thing. It's Battle of the Fridge, as we all know. And there's no bridge.
The context behind the Battle of the Fridge is, for this year, we're going to have ourselves a bit of a competition with the GWS podcast, the Squinters, where whoever loses has to buy a case of beer for the other podcast. So that's the Battle of the Fridge, not the Battle of the Bridge. Thank you very much.
But like the GWS socials team, the marketing team, they must just be a group of mercenaries, because they are just absolutely the cheek that these blokes and ladies, whoever they are, come out with is just ridiculous. I mean, how have they been allowed to take a photo in front of the Sydney Harbour Bridge? No, I'm serious. I want to see some AFL intervention here, because there are zones. There are zones. Of course, you can't stop people having fun in the Harbour City. I'm all for it. If the sun's shining, it's a wonderful thing to look at. Yeah. But it is a planned marketing event that they've thought, this is going to ruffle some feathers. You beauty, and boy, did I bite. But
the Bloods Footy, who has, of course, don't say too much about him. Of course, they're all over Instagram and Facebook and everyone. I definitely recommend everyone to follow them. So Bloods Footy had a really good line. He actually took a picture. He had that There's an iconic harbour bridge in Liverpool outside of some old car yards, and he had the photo in front of that. And that made a lot more sense because that's out of Liverpool and that's definitely west of us. So that should be the focus of where their photo should have been taken, but that was really clever.
Well, we came up with some alternatives as well.
Outside of Penrith Panthers, the Panthers.
Panthers.
We thought about doing Eastern Creek.
Yep.
And our own lovely Beck Humphries actually thought about doing it in front of Parliament House in Canberra.
So that was a good one.
It will make sense. Yeah.
All of those make way more sense than the western side of the Sydney Harbour Bridge. It wasn't lost on me that it was on the western side. You know, that's how they were like, that's how we snuck in.
I don't think it was. I feel
it was on
it was like Walsh Bay.
It was over that side.
Yeah, right. That doesn't leave much. Anyway. So
Cheeky
whatever,
monkeys.
let's bring on those games. Yep. Well, that brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you for listening in to the pre-season 2024 all the way to the end. We appreciate it. If you have made it this far, it means we have done something good. So please, we would love it if you gave us a like or a follow on whatever social media of choice.
Make sure to look out for our posts during the week. As we said, we're going to be getting to the match sims and preseason games. So, just keep an eye out for more content coming your way. We can't wait, and we know you can't either.
Either way, mate, we look forward to seeing you and hearing from you or hearing from you through any DMs. Feel free to reach out to us. But until next time, up the bloods.
And
can
you Swatties!